Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to UTubeFoundry. I'm Richard, and what we're going to do in this series of videos is we're going to take a look at the YouTube community guidelines and policies. How does YouTube decide what goes on their site, what doesn't go on their site? How do they moderate that content? I think it's a really important thing for you to understand, particularly if you wanted to use their platform to express your views or to post your content. So with that, let's just get into this discussion of the YouTube governance structure. So the first thing you need to understand, I think, about YouTube is that YouTube, being on YouTube is a privilege, not a right. YouTube is a business. They own their platform. They get to decide what goes on there and what doesn't. You don't have any kind of constitutional right to express your views on their site. You do have a constitutional right to freedom of speech. And if you want to set up your own site, you can do that. That's what Donald Trump did because he felt like they were not giving him fair access to their sites, their platforms. So he started his own platform called Truth Social. But if you want to start your own platform, go ahead and do that. But if you want to use somebody else's platform, you're going to have to follow their rules and their guidelines. Now, so if you want to remain on YouTube, if you want to have access to their platform and take advantage of that, you're going to have to follow their guidelines and policies. And you need to understand the consequences if you violate those guidelines and policies. What's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your material, your content? And how do you get that reinstated if they somehow decide that they want to shut you down? We're going to talk about all of that, but just always remember that this is their site and you are challenging their rules and guidelines whenever you violate them. Now, next thing I need you to understand is that if you do not follow the guidelines and policies, you can get banned from their site. Getting banned is a bad thing. They can shut your site down. They can kick your material offline. They can say, fine, take your material, take your toys, go somewhere else, but you're not playing in our sandbox. That's certainly up to them to do that. And now, there is a process that you can use to appeal that decision, but it could take months. It could take a long time to appeal that decision, during which time you can lose a lot of subscribers, you can lose viewers, you have to rebuild your whole channel from scratch, and you are going to lose a lot of revenue in that process. So it's always better to not be banned in the first place, which means to do that, you're going to have to follow their rules. You're going to have to do what they say, the way they say to do it. And if you do that, you're not going to have any problems with them. They're not out there arbitrarily kicking people off their site. They don't want to do that because remember, they want to use your content for them to make money. However, if you violate their rules, they do have the right to either warn you or to give you strikes or to ban you altogether from their site. So being a YouTube content creator is just like any other business. You need to become an expert in that industry. This is the content creation industry, and you need to become an expert not in just creating content, but understanding how the industry works so that you can get that content published and seen by other people. It's no given that when you create content, no matter how great it is, that other people are going to see it. If you don't have a way to distribute that, a way to get that content out to the people that might want to see it, you're going to have trouble. And that's why you're using the YouTube platform in the first place, because it is the #1 platform in the world for content creation and content distribution. So to do that, to help understand what's going on with YouTube, they have a help area, and I'm going to show you how to get to it and how to use it. But it's going to give you some areas and some things that we need to cover, and we're going to do those. So the first thing, there are 5 areas that we're going to need to talk about. One is the YouTube community guidelines and the YouTube policies. Those are fundamentally different and have different consequences if you violate them. There's also a reporting and enforcement process that's involved. And then there's privacy and safety concerns. So some things they are concerned about is things that they believe could endanger public safety if they're published, and so they don't allow you to publish those or may not pay you. For example, YouTube generally does not pay advertising revenue to people who have channels on guns because that's not, you're allowed to have that channel. They're just not going to pay. They're not going to pay for that kind of content. Privacy issues. So publishing things with about other people where you got that information privately. It's not supposed to be general public knowledge. You're publishing that strictly to embarrass people or something is also something else they will not allow. But we'll talk about that in more detail. And finally, there's the copyrights and right management issue. So if you publish content that is somebody else's copyright, if you read a book if you got a channel where you're reading books online and you don't have the right to read that book out loud online for money, you can get challenged on that. If you are playing music in the background that is copyrighted by somebody else, you might get in trouble for that. And I don't want to say in trouble, but those people who file a claim against you can then claim all the revenue for that video in which that music appears, for example. So you have to be very, very careful about that, and we'll talk about those issues as well. Now, with that, let's just get right into the issue of how we access all this information. Okay, so once we're at this site, support.google.com, it's going to bring up all these different icons and tiles down here on the screen. Now, these are different tiles for different companies that Google owns. In fact, you can see it goes way down the screen. We can continue to add additional ones to it. But you remember, YouTube is a company that is owned by Google, and so it's going to show up as one of the family of Google companies. So if you find that icon, which is right here on the first row, we're going to click on it. It's going to take us to a different screen. On this screen, it's the YouTube help screen, and there's a lot of things here that we might want to look at. But what we're really wanting is what's down below this. If we scroll down, we see a bunch of things here. Well, the first thing is fix a problem. Then we've got a lot of other things. We got watch videos, manage your account and settings, supervised experiences on YouTube, YouTube Premium, create and grow your channel, monetize, and then the last was the one we're really interested in for this discussion, which is the policy, safety, and copyright page. So we click on that, and it's going to bring up a lot of items. These 5 items you see here are the 5 items I just told you about. The community guidelines, the policies, reporting and enforcement, privacy and safety, and copyright and rights management. So we're going to talk about each one of those in the videos that will follow this, but for right now, we just want to talk about these 5. Now, when you click on the first one, it's going to take you to this screen. And what's interesting, first of all, it talks about the community guidelines, and we'll get into those in the next video. But it also is going to show you these 5 items again here on the just to the right of that text box. Now, what's interesting is for the community guidelines, it's going to show you this. If I go to YouTube policies, the little outline disappears. So you have to click the back button to get back to that. Go to reporting and enforcement. Of course, the outline disappears. Now, one thing I want you to notice for each one of these other screens, there's a whole lot of stuff. I'm not going to go through every single one of these items. I think that you should be responsible enough to go through these items yourself and make sure that you are familiar with each of these items. Some of these things won't really apply to you. For example, they've got a whole section down here on copyright and right management. Now, here's the thing to understand. If you are doing something that is not infringing upon somebody else's copyright, you're fine. Your content needs to be original. Any music you need should be original. We've also seen incidences where people will get a complaint filed against them because they portray another company's product or trademark on their website. Well, if you're doing a review of that, that's really going to be okay. YouTube might challenge it, but if you can get a letter from that company saying that's quite all right, we don't mind it, that's not going to be a problem at all. But just be careful of that when you show other companies' trademarks or logos on your thumbnails particularly. That's where it's going to be a problem. Not in the video as much, but on the thumbnail, that can be a real problem when you're showing other people's trademarks and other people's photographs or imagery. So with that, we're going to take a look at each one of these items in the subsequent videos, spending significant amount of time on each one to make sure that you are familiar with what's going on so you understand not only what the rules are that you need to follow, but what happens if you accidentally break one of those rules, which I did recently, and I'll tell you about that, and what happens when YouTube contacts you. How do you appeal it? What do you do with it? And we'll talk about all of those things in the upcoming videos. Okay, hopefully this was helpful. We'll see you in the next one.